Even when I run one-shots with a chase encounter in them, the players will come back to me and say, dude, teach me how to do that. That was awesome. Chases are intense, fast-paced encounters, more so than combat. They allow the player to do exactly what they designed their character to do. Some of my players literally cheer when I announce we're entering a chase encounter. First off, the idea of a chase encounter in D&D is not original. There's about 2 pages in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide that explain exactly how to run chases, but most of it is actually horrible. It tells you to run a chase like you run combat, tracking initiative and exactly how far each person moves every turn, even using a long skinny map in some cases. And if the party decides to split, you have to track 2 different combats simultaneously, which is ridiculous. If that's your thing, great. Go ahead and look at the Dungeon Master's Guide for their rules. But what I'm going to show you is much more intense. Chases are supposed to be intense, fast-paced, and thrilling. A split-second decision could make all the difference. Having a whole minute to decide exactly what you're going to do in the next 6 seconds really kills the tension. Several celebrity DMs like Matt Mercer and Matt Colville use skill challenges in their games, and that's essentially what this chase is. Here's how it works. First, announce that the chase is beginning. It could be a race, it could be an escape, or it could be the party trying to run someone down. Then you'll have to explain the rules to the players. The players will be using their best skills, key points, spells, abilities, items. Everything that they have at their disposal is fair game for a chase. And by creatively as possible, I mean use an attack against a building's support beam to cause it to collapse instead of just swinging at the enemy and doing regular combat damage. Even if you've run several chases before and the players already know what's up, go through the rules anyway. This will give them time to try to figure out exactly what they're going to do on their first turn. Then you call on a player at random and give them 5 to 10 seconds to decide exactly what to do. Make it clear to the players that once they make a decision, they cannot go back on it. This makes their decisions feel more impactful and more permanent. Whatever time limit you decide to give your players, be lenient with it. If they think of something to do just a few seconds too late, that's fine. Just allow it to happen unless they really enjoy that cutthroat style of play. If the player decides to use one of their larger spell slots or something they can only do once or twice a day, allow it to succeed no matter what. It really sucks when you burn your highest level spell slot and nothing happens. The point of the game is to have fun, so that's what this chase is designed to do. For example, clerics can only destroy undead a couple times a day. So when my cleric decided that's what they wanted to do, I said, sure, and didn't even ask for a roll. Webster, you're next. 6 seconds to figure something out.
Following. I'm going to cast Turn Undead.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Destroy undead. Destroy
With your
undead.
destroy undead. Okay, go ahead and
Destroy Undead.
as Webster, you burn that
Channel divinity.
you burn that channel divinity. As you take your staff and you slam it into the ground, this radiant light just bursts out in a wave, and every single zombie that it passes through just gets incinerated, clearing the way and letting you choose what path is next. All right, Mihaela, you're up next.
I already have
If the player wants to use something that's consumable but has a lot of uses, like a low-level spell slot or a key point, ask for a skill check with a lower DC. And with that, we will go to Ermin next.
I'm going to cast Mirror Image on myself, just as a last-ditch effort, seeing things go kind of awry. I will, it's a reaction, but I'll go ahead and have Silvery Barbs on standby if I see someone needs it.
Okay. Mirror image is up. I will have you make an Arcana check and this is going to be to make the illusion as realistic as possible and make it not necessarily mirroring your exact movements and phasing through boxes and walls, but instead trying to make them look like it's a bunch of people running after you.
The illusions look like really crappy versions of myself. Like, one of them's super tall, one of them's really fat and stout, no taller than a gnome. I rolled a 4, so not very convincing.
and it starts to look like a bad video game as they just phase through the floor, ceiling, walls, and they sort of like glitch left and right.
One of them's like, there's a turn in the hallway. One of them is like perpetually running into the wall.
another one next to you has just gone full T-pose and is just floating along behind you. If they don't ask to use a specific skill, choose one for them. Make it appropriate to the situation, whatever they're trying to do. For example, monks are almost certainly going to want to use Step of the Wind to make them run faster through a crowded street. But how are they getting through the crowd? Are they using athletics to knock people down as they go? Or are they running across the top of the crowd on people's heads and using insight to guess where their foothold is going to move next? If the player wants to use something with infinite uses, like a skill or a cantrip, then make the DC slightly higher. And next up, we'll go with Mothboy.
Okay, Mothboy is going to take off into flight. Are there any citizens that are still standing? Any?
Yes, the scream effect that happened to the from the Mind Flayer was pretty far away from you. Most of the crowd of like 100 or so people has begun to scatter away from the stage, trying to get away from whatever danger. Most of them are pretty confused and don't know what's happening, but they know they need to seek shelter. So there's plenty that are still standing.
I am looking for one strong Fem. And when I spot this person, I say, yes, you need to stop and you need to make sure that nobody is running over anyone. Because just make sure that nobody is doing anything, okay?
Make a persuasion check to
23.
With a 23, you spot a female Goliath that is just towering over pretty much everybody there, completely bald on the top of her head, just completely
Can I make
jacked.
a request? May I make
Yeah.
a request? Can we
Sure.
say it's the Goliath from the pie eating contest?
Absolutely, yes. The Goliath from the pie eating contest, face still sort of smeared with raspberry jam. You can see her in her pretty much just like tight shorts and a jean vest, and
I
like,
go, that's the one.
yep, obviously
baby.
there's a clear choice here. And she turns around and says, "Right, yes, you there, no, this way," and immediately just starts directing traffic from her head and a half above the entire crowd.
Excellent. I use the rest, so I dash, and my flying speed is 50, so I just go 100 feet in the way. Yes.
Straight towards the Mind Flayer. And
More like
Shanka,
gay
you're
towards the Mind Flayer, but
which actually gets you there faster.
Oh, perfect.
Sometimes the player will take a look at their sheet and see that, ooh, I'm proficient in this, but I have no idea how to use it in this situation. It's okay to make suggestions for them. Like a rogue might want to use sleight of hand to catch someone, but they're not sure exactly how they can do that from 60 feet away. In scenarios like that, it is okay to make suggestions to your player. Tell the rogue they see a wand sticking out of someone's pocket. They'll make a sleight of hand check to grab it. If the roll is high enough, maybe it ends up being a wand of web or paralysis with just one charge left that will snare their prey immediately. If they roll a low check, maybe they successfully take the wand, but it ends up just being a fancy stick. If you call on a player and time runs out before they can decide what to do, a complication happens. A complication is something that interferes with the chase that you, the DM, make up on the spot. It requires a saving throw from the player with a certain DC associated with it. The chase section in the Dungeon Master's Guide actually has some pretty good suggestions for complications. 10 for an urban chase and 10 for a wilderness one. And most of those complications are actually pretty good. It's one of the few parts of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I actually enjoy. My favorite one is in the urban chase, and a stained glass window gets carried across the player's path. The player has to make a strength saving throw to find out if their character shatters through the glass or just bounces off of it. Normally, I'll just make up a complication on the spot, but those tables have been quite handy on several occasions. If you're a learning DM, and that should be all DMs, then make an attack roll against that subscribe button for more tips that will help you in your game. Don't worry, its AC is like 4. Now to put it all together, here's what one turn in a chase should look like. The party was spotted during a heist and the guards are chasing them through the city. Call on the ranger and hold up fingers to let her know how much time she has left to decide what to do. Let's say she does decide it in time. The ranger wants to use her animal handling skill to make horses pull a cart into the guard's way. Quickly describe what she's looking for. A large carriage pulled by 2 Clydesdales. Set a DC that should be kind of difficult for the ranger and have her make that ability check. If the ranger succeeds, describe how she slaps both horses and they move just enough to block the guard's path. If the ranger fails, describe how she trips over the hitch to the carriage and the guards continue to gain ground on her. Then call on another player at random. Don't let them know who's coming next. Continue this for as long as you want. I like to do it until everyone has gone at least 2 or 3 times. To make it as cinematic as possible, make it hard for the players to do the same thing twice, especially twice in a row. If the ranger tries again to move horses into the guard's path just because it worked last time, make it so that she can only find a donkey pulling a cart and make the DC to move that donkey much higher. Arbitrarily setting DCs can be difficult, even for experienced DMs. So usually what I do is I decide whether I want the party to succeed in the chase or if I want them to fail, and use that to inform how high the DC should be. I'm sure you've noticed that I haven't given the party a way to win or lose the chase. What is the goal? What happens when they succeed or fail? When I run a chase, I actually don't keep track of that. The party wins when they feel like they've won, and they lose when they feel like they've lost. I've tried tracking how far away the party is from their prey or how far they've traveled. It usually just takes away from the tension as I try to do math. The characters' speed differences should not split the party. Some are going to be much faster and some are going to be much slower. If the party splits, you're going to have more to keep track of. What I do is I have the party travel as a group, or I just loosely keep track of about where they are. Having a definitive way to tell if you've won or lost can be very helpful to some tables though. If your table is like that, then I suggest having the party travel as a group and subtract and add increments of 30 feet depending on whether the party is succeeding or failing in their chase. I say 30 feet because that's the increments in which spells' ranges are. So if the party is chasing and most of them succeed on a check, they get 30 feet closer to their prey. If most of them fail, they get 30 feet further away. And lastly, the most important thing to remember about these chases is that everything I just said is guidelines, not hard rules. If someone wants to do something on their turn that would technically require 2 actions, go ahead, allow it to happen. We're not actually in combat. These aren't actual rounds. And whether chases work for your table or not, remember, everything is going to be okay. A huge thank you to my 3 Patreon supporters, Alora, Stavrosia, and Callista. If you want access to the tools I've created to help me run games, or just want to support the channel, click on the Patreon link in the description. With 2 more supporters, I'll be releasing the questionnaire to give to players when starting a new campaign.